woke whites are turning minorities into Republican voters.
In this expose, we will reference the March 16th article by Christopher Jacobs of The Federalist. In this piece, Mr. Jacob explains how the Democrats are losing blacks and Hispanics by the droves via the woke whites of the party. Also, we will talk about how the political polarization by education is being supplanted with the political polarization by race. We will show how leftist data analyst David Shore was shocked to learn that President Trump received larger minority support than did Rhino Mitt Romney in 2012. Will the fact that minorities are abandoning the left cause the Democrat Party to rethink its policies? We shall see. Finally, we will reveal the left's plan to counterbalance their political downfall by, you guessed it, rigging the system. And if you like what we do here at The Conservative Take, please consider hitting that like and subscribe buttons, as well as the bell icon, so that you will be notified for any future content. Now here is how woke whites are turning minorities into Republicans. Let's begin.
Upper-class whites have alienated African Americans and Hispanics from the Democrat coalition. That's why Democrats have gone berserk. They're expecting to lose in 2022 and 2024. In the middle of their legislative orgy of socialistic giveaways and identity politics, Democrats might want to contemplate that their political priorities do not command the support of a majority of American voters. Moreover, the warnings on this front do not come from the right, they come from leftists themselves. When an editorial columnist from the bastion of liberalism, the New York Times, writes that, quote, Democrats are worried, very worried about the future of the Hispanic vote, unquote, you know something's up. As it turns out, the radicalized woke among upper-class whites have done a good job alienating both the African Americans and Hispanics from the Democratic coalition. Minorities abandoning the left. Times columnist Tom Edsall cited polling data from Public Opinion Strategies showing that Democratic support among self-described conservative Hispanics shifted by a whopping 50 points over 8 years. Democrats won these voters by a 10-point margin in 2012, but lost them by 40 percentage points last year. Conservative African Americans likewise showed migration away from Democrats. While the African American vote moved away from Democrats on smaller scale, the party's dependence on winning the vast majority of Hispanics and African American votes to achieve electoral success makes any migration away from Democrats by minority populations a cause for alarm. A separate interview with lefty data analyst David Shore reinforced the views in Edsall's column. Shore argues that political polarization by educational status has in many ways supplanted polarization by race. While the Democratic vote increased by 7 percentage points among white college graduates in 2020, the party's support among African Americans dropped by 1 to 2 percentage points, among Hispanics dropped by 8 to 9 points, and as much as 14 to 15 points in areas like South Florida, and among Asian Americans by roughly 5 points. Shore notes that, quote, I don't think a lot of people expected Donald Trump's GOP to have a much more diverse support base than Mitt Romney did in 2012. But that's what happened, unquote. Wokes alienating minority groups. In observing that highly educated people tend to have a more ideological, coherent, and extreme views than working class ones, Shore finds that the migration of woke college-educated whites into Democratic coalition has radicalized the party, thereby repelling non-whites among the working class. As Democrats have traded non-college-educated voters for college-educated ones, white liberals' share of voice and clout in the Democratic Party has gone up. And since white voters are sorting on ideology more than non-white voters, we've ended up in a situation where white liberals are more left-wing than black and Hispanic Democrats on pretty much every issue: taxes, healthcare, policing, and even on radical issues or various measures of racial resentment. So as white liberals increasingly define the party's image and messaging, that's going to turn off non-white conservative Democrats and push them against us. Shore considers these developments a flashing red light for the left. Most voters are not liberals. If you polarize the electorate on ideology, or if nationally prominent Democrats raise the salience of issues that polarize the electorate on ideology, we're going to lose a lot of votes. Several of the political analysts Edsall quotes in this column agree with Shore's contention that a radicalized Democratic Party could alienate more voters than it attracts. Democratic consultant Mark Farinella.
As far-left activists compete with Democratic Party leaders to define party values and messaging, the centrist voters needed to achieve a durable majority will remain wary about Democratic desires for dominance.
Harvard professor Ryan Enos.
The question for parties is whether members of their coalition are a liability because they repel other voters from the coalition. For Democrats, this may increasingly be the case with college-educated whites. They are increasingly concentrated into large cities, which mitigates their electoral impact, and they dominate certain institutions, such as universities and the media. The views emanating from these cities and institutions are out of step with a large portion of the electorate.
Republican pollster Whit Ayers.
When white liberal Democrats start talking about defunding the police, the Green New Deal, and promoting policies that can be described as socialistic, they repel a lot of Hispanic voters. In other words, most Hispanics, like most African Americans, are not ideological liberals.
Stanford University political scientist Bruce Kane.
Democrats set themselves up for losses if they do not pay attention to the realities of public opinion.
So much for the oft-repeated leftist mantra about how demography is destiny and the supposedly enduring nature of the Democratic coalition. Sure solution for the left: rig the system. Looking ahead to next year's midterms elections to Congress, in which the president's party traditionally loses seats, Shore worries that ideological polarization will lead to an electoral bloodbath for the left. In his view, those historic trends, coupled with the structurally conservative nature of Congress, one where Republican voters are distributed more efficiently than Democratic voters, who are largely concentrated in urban areas, mean the Democrats have very grim chances in the next several elections. What does Shore think Democrats should do about this looming catastrophe? Rather than modernizing their policies, Shore thinks the left should use the current Congress to tilt the playing field permanently in its direction, by requiring red states to redraw their congressional districts in a more pro-Democrat manner and admitting new states that will increase the Democratic votes in the Senate. Since the maps in the House of Representatives are so biased against us, if we don't pass a redistricting reform, our chances of keeping the House is very low. And then the Senate is more biased against us than the House. So it's very important that we add as many states as we can. Currently, if we have an exceptionally good midterm, the most likely outcome is that we lose 1 or 2 Senate seats. And then going into 2024, we will have something like 7 or 8 Democrats who are in states that are more Republican than the country overall. Basically, we have the small window right now to pass redistricting, reform, and create states. If we don't use this window, we will almost certainly lose control of the federal government and not be in a position to pass laws again, potentially for a decade. Those kinds of potential electoral consequences for the Democrat coalition should prompt the newly radicalized left to rethink their policies, rather than trying to rig the system to offset the effects of their unpopular ideas. Sadly, however, they probably won't.
What are your thoughts on the current woke status of the Democrat Party? Do you think their persistence will further push blacks and Hispanics out of the party and into the GOP? Or will their plans of rigging the system on the heels of the 2022 primaries prevail? Let us know in the comments below, or jump over to our Discord server, where you can not only interact with us and others via text, voice, or video, but you will also have access to all of our archived research materials that we use to create our videos. Link is in the description. If you enjoy the content on The Conservative Take, please hit those like and subscribe buttons, the bell icon, and please share with your friends. It really helps to grow the channel, as we have set a goal to reach 10,000 subscribers. If you would like to support this channel further, please click the join button below to find out how to do just that. Also, please check out some more videos that we have right here.